Number 13, Miami 2024 preseason preview on Good Morning College Football. Hello and welcome to episode 63 of Good Morning College Football. I'm Nicholas Ian Allen of CFP Winning Edge and CampusToCanton.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, Monday, July 1st. We are officially 54 days away from kickoff of the 2024 college football season. But as we turn the calendar to the month of July, of course, another key milestone. A lot of folks looking forward to the EA Sports College Football 25 video game coming out this month, just a few weeks away now. And if I'm not mistaken, fall camps, at least at a few schools, will be opening toward the end of this month. So those teams kicking off for week 0 typically get started a week earlier than the rest. When it comes to fall camps, most fall camps typically open around August 1st, with week 0 that first Saturday being August 31st this season. Might be a couple of days earlier than that this year on the whole, but those teams like Florida State and Georgia Tech, who are kicking off in week 0 in Dublin, believe that they're going to get going this month as well. So things are getting close, absolutely. And thank you so much for joining us live. Thank you for checking us out on the Campus to Canton YouTube channel. We very much appreciate if you would like this video. Of course, subscribe to the Campus to Canton YouTube channel. We're very much appreciative of that. But also, if you would like to check out CampusToCanton.com, you can do so for as little as $2.99 per month. We believe it's the best value in fantasy football from a membership perspective. You get instant access to premium articles, written content on the site, as well as VIP Discord chats, premium tools, rankings, all kinds of great stuff for all of our members. And then the higher you go up in your membership tier, the more doors open to you. We've got a new tool being rolled out this week. The draft tool, rostership tool has been sort of in a beta mode. That is getting officially rolled out this week. There'll be more information there. I believe there might be a discount code as well. So check out Campus to Canton on Twitter and other outlets, other shows. I'm sure there'll be some details coming very, very soon on that. But of course, if you're interested in a lot of the stuff that we talk about here, some of the things that we will base our team preview on today, like the CFP Winning Edge returning production database, our CFP Winning Edge team profiles, our full stat projections are coming out in just a couple of weeks. Officially, we'll have some available for the Campus to Canton CFF guide, which will be published in about a week. But all of those things, team profiles, returning production database, our full stat projections are available to C2C Winning Edge and all 22 tier members at CampusToCanton.com. So if you haven't already, we definitely suggest checking it out. Reach out to me if you have any questions on any of that. But let's go ahead and get to the news. We do have a couple of news items to discuss before we dig into our Miami preview. Some very unfortunate news coming out of Cincinnati on Friday. All Big 12 defensive lineman Dante Corleone, who had 39 tackles last season, 6.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and his impact for the Bearcats is certainly bigger than those stats would indicate. Somebody who passed up an opportunity to enter the NFL draft, and according to most would have been certainly an NFL draft pick this year. Unfortunately, he is going to be out indefinitely since undergoing treatment for blood clots in his lungs in mid-June. That was announced by the program on Friday. There's hope that Corleone will be able to get back onto the field, hopefully sooner rather than later. But most importantly, certainly wishing he will get well soon after undergoing a pretty scary situation, it sounds like. So Dante Corleone, perhaps the best player on that Cincinnati roster, currently out indefinitely as he deals with a pretty serious, certainly very serious medical situation. So wishing all the best for him moving forward. One late transfer of note, perhaps, former starter at cornerback at USC, Zaire Wright, has committed to Nebraska. This has been sort of rumored for a little while. Wright, was a starter in 2022. Also started 4 games, I believe, last season in 2023. But certainly, that USC defense has struggled. Wright is someone who was very highly rated coming out of high school, high 4-star recruit, has also been working as an actor and model. And so there was some thought that perhaps he would just step away from football, but instead headed to Nebraska, where I think he certainly has the opportunity to be a contributor right away. We went ahead and penciled him in as a member of the 2-deep backup corner, and with the potential, I would think once he gets up, full speed there in Lincoln, perhaps to emerge as a starter for the Cornhuskers, this year. All right. You're probably here for our 2024 Miami team preview. And as you can see by the title, Miami ranks 13th in our CFB Winning Edge team strength power rankings for the preseason. We're not the highest on Miami, but we're certainly, I think, a little bit more on the high side than most of the rankings that we compare to for these team previews. Try to gather, a variety of sources, get an understanding as to where our projections, which don't take into account any personal opinion. My personal opinion is not part of this. It is only based on how our numbers shake out. They're built on player ratings, individual player ratings, where we use the recruiting sites, raw talent projections as high school recruits, do update some for transfers, but adjust those for experience and production, build those up into position and unit ratings, then overall roster strength ratings. That is the biggest piece of the puzzle for us, how talented or just overall how strong. That's why it's, roster strength rating. How strong are these rosters on paper? We also combine that with our team performance rating. So how well did this team play on the field? No talent metrics at all go into that. So we try to separate those, give 2 different looks at it and then blend them, as well as our coach ratings, which are head coach specific team performance ratings. So same, just on field, only cares about, advanced stats and how that team performed between the white lines. And then combine all that together, gives us our team strength power rating. How well do these teams stack up on a neutral field? Who would be favored versus who? Miami, top 13 in the country. Only 12 other teams would be favored on a neutral field against the Hurricane. So this is your first time with us. That's hopefully an understandable way of looking at it. But of course, there are plenty of others out there who, have a similar process and get slightly different results. There are others out there who just want to look at, I don't want to say just vibes, but how do they expect this team to finish based, more on opinionated pieces, try to go beyond what maybe just some of the numbers might say. So we get a variety of sources. The top ranking for Miami that I was able to find is Phil Steele, who has the Hurricanes at number 10 in both his power poll, which is a little bit more of the computer-based, non-opinion, how well will these teams stack up on a neutral field, but also in Steele's predictions, his top 25, top 40. How does he think they're going to finish? Has Miami as a top 10 team nationally in both of those numbers. Andy Staples of On3, his most recent preseason top 25 released back in June. Most of these are from June with a couple of updates sprinkled in, and we'll try to make sure we keep them as up to date as possible. Staples has Miami 13th. Also, we're starting to incorporate those EA Sports power rankings. Certainly a lot of opinions on how those numbers have shaken out over the last couple of days, but EA Sports had Miami as number 13 in its power rankings as well. Stuart Mandel of The Athletic had Miami 14th in his write-up in June, post-spring top 25. Kelly Ford has a new version of the K Ford ratings with Miami 17th in his most recent numbers. Both SP Plus from Bill Connolly and ESPN and Beta have Miami 19th in those analytics computer-based models. Athlon Sports preseason magazine, Miami is number 20 nationally. In ESPN's Football Power Index, the Hurricanes are 23rd. ESPN's Mark Schlabach's post-spring power rankings had Miami 24th. And the Sporting News has Miami unranked in its most recent preseason top 25 that I was able to see. So a wide range of projections, predictions on how this Miami team will fare, or also how well it is currently, built. this Miami roster, coaching staff, all of that. So this team, it seems like, could go, multiple directions. Some see it as a playoff contender. Bruce Feldman of The Athletic actually had Miami as the 11 seed in his playoff predictions a week or so ago. But there certainly are plenty who see this Miami team as, perhaps maybe having too many questions, or just a track record, quite honestly, and something we'll talk about, of not playing at the level of what you might expect based on the talent on hand. So our numbers really like the way this Miami team is built, as you'll see a little bit later on. The Canes rank number 6 in our overall roster strength rating, so only 5 teams look better on paper currently the way that we apply those numbers. Nevertheless, that's not really super new. I mean, our numbers have liked Miami a lot since we started doing this in 2018. This is pretty common for our projections to have Miami as like a top 15 type team in our power ratings. And traditionally, they haven't always played like it. And there have been, last year particularly, there was, one especially just very high profile, embarrassing moment that sort of showed some of the lack of ability to take advantage or to finish, to win games that you're supposed to win. Of course, I'm talking about where they should have kneeled out against Georgia Tech, ended up giving the ball back to the Yellow Jackets, who quickly scored and in stunning fashion were able to win that game. But there have been plenty of folks from the outside looking in who think that Mario Cristobal specifically doesn't always get the most out of the talent on his roster. But it's not strictly a Cristobal problem. Our numbers date back to 2018, and multiple head coaches have had what looked like very talented rosters, very well-built rosters on paper that just haven't quite played up to that level. So what are some others saying? What are some reasons where there might be optimism for this Miami team to finally get over the hump, finally break through, finally perhaps capitalize on its playoff potential? The expanded college football playoff, of course, could be very key to that. But most everything centers on Cam Ward, the transfer quarterback most recently at Washington State, began his career at Incarnate Word at the FCS level, has played a lot of football, over 40 career starts, has thrown for nearly 14,000 yards as a Division I quarterback, accounted for 119 touchdowns in his career, was briefly expected to enter the NFL draft, where there were some folks think that perhaps he would have been able to move into the first round. there's others, as we'll discuss here, that do see Ward as having first round potential. But certainly not a perfect quarterback, has some areas of improvement, as we'll discuss as well. Bruce Feldman of The Athletic, we've referred to this piece for several quarterbacks in our top 12 previews, but he had some anonymous quotes about NFL draft eligible quarterbacks, some expected to be in the mix, some of the top players at the position in college football this year. A former Pac-12 head coach that Feldman is quoting here says, "I think he can be a first-round guy. I think people have been hard on him, and obviously the turnovers and the dumb stuff," talking about fumbling, where Cam Ward has fumbled 46 times in his career. Continuing again from the piece here, the dumb stuff has to stop. He wasn't protected well, but he's really competitive, and I don't think people give enough credit to how smart that dude is. I feel like it's there. He can make a ton of throws. He has escapability in the pocket. I think the kid should be rising way up, especially with a weak class next year. He absolutely did the right decision coming back. A defensive assistant, another anonymous, former opponent, I assume here, quoted as saying, "He's really good when the play broke down. His arm is strong, but his accuracy is inconsistent. When teams got after him early, he wasn't as sharp, but I thought he was probably the best quarterback we played last year. He was outrunning our spies. He's running around to keep his eyes downfield. Really talented kid, thicker in person than I thought. Looks a little linebacker-ish." So Cam Ward, not the prototypical 6'5", 230, but is perhaps a little thicker, at least up close, than his listed height and weight of 6'2", 223. A couple of other notes here. Jordan Reed of ESPN had a similar piece looking at a lot of the top QB projected or if not top QBs, most of the draft eligible QBs who could play their way maybe into that first round conversation. One of the things that Reed pointed out as a real area where Ward excels, says he's an electrifying playmaker, reading here from the piece, who can tie defenses in knots from in or out of the pocket. Last season, he ranked 14th in the FBS in passing yards inside the pocket and 11th in yards outside the pocket. He has excellent improvisational skills and can make Houdini-like plays outside of structure. He can generate velocity on his passes and is extremely confident in throwing into tight windows. But as Reed mentions, a couple of areas where he really could use work, has areas of improvement. He says that Ward's confidence in his arm strength can get him into trouble at times. So he's certainly able to create opportunities, run around, make a big play, make something out of nothing. But that confidence that he said, is an area of, a real positive, has the confidence to try to fit it into a tight window, but also perhaps maybe in some cases that can be overconfident. So making maybe a poor decision there, forcing a play, trying to make a big play. So reading again from the piece here, Reed says of Ward, playing in an offense that relied heavily on underneath passes last season, he averaged just 6.7 air yards per attempt, which ranked 117th in the FBS. He wasn't asked to go through progressions at Washington State, which meant he passed up plays down the field. When he did throw it deeper, he was really solid. Ward completed 55.3% of his passes that traveled 10 or more air yards, which ranked 12th in the country. I want to see him consistently create these big games. I know there's been a little bit of a talking point in some fantasy circles about, that Ward is just a poor downfield passer, according to Reed. That's not necessarily the case. Those accuracy numbers stack up pretty well when Ward attempted passes of 10 yards or more last season. David Hale, who for ESPN ranked and tiered all 134 FBS quarterback situations, and Hale, of course, is an ACC focused media personality, feels pretty good about Cam Ward, puts him in tier 2, puts this Miami quarterback room in tier 2 alongside Arizona, Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. So not necessarily, surefire. These quarterbacks are the best in the country, but there's the potential for this group, including Ward, to when everything goes right, be maybe one of the best in the country. The pairing with Jalen Daniels in Kansas, who of course questions about his injury history, similar with Cam Rising at Utah. When those players are healthy, they can be real game changers. Cam Ward, I think, somewhat similar. The expectation is, he's done, put up some good numbers in the past, been inconsistent. Now he's stepping up, looking to capitalize on one, first-round potential, but also to take this Miami offense and this Miami program to a level that we haven't seen for a while. Turn them from a disappointing team last year and the last few years, not playing up to the level of what you would expect based on the talent in hand, and turning into a real ACC title contender and potentially playoff contender, which I have to be honest, I am buying in little by little, but as we'll talk about when we get into our team profiles here in just a bit. I was worried for a little while that we were actually too low on Miami. Right now, I think we're just about right, having 13th and one of those top 3 or 4 teams in the ACC. Officially number 2, but the next 2 teams we'll discuss are ACC teams as well. So it's very, very close with Miami for that number 2 spot in the power rankings. All right, looking at last season's results, we'll pull up our CFP Winning Edge team profiles, which again, if you would like to see all 134 FBS teams, we also will be adding the upcoming FBS teams later this fall, Delaware and Missouri State, who we saw Kennesaw State is officially now a member of Conference USA, Oklahoma and Texas officially there in the SEC, SMU, Stanford, and Cal are officially ACC members now. I believe the Big 12 might not have its official members, quote unquote, official new members until maybe a few more days or something. I don't know. But today is the official joining of several of the new programs, including some teams that Miami will be facing this year. But last season, the Hurricanes got off to a great start, 4-0, really pretty dominant in non-conference play. Even that Texas A&M game, which was 2 touchdown or so, 2 possession window there in the final score. Looking at the post-game win expectancy numbers from collegefootballdata.com, their advanced box scores, where if you were to replay that game with the same box score 100 times, 1,000 times, however many, you would expect Miami to win that Texas A&M game 98% of the time. So that was a very impressive performance overall. The rest of a relatively weak schedule. I mean, if you could say MAC champion, conference champion, Miami of Ohio, Miami University, very, very dominant performance there in week 1. But that Georgia Tech loss, inexplicable as it was, set off a really difficult rest of the season for Miami. That game, Miami had an 89% chance of winning. If they had just kneeled it, should have won that game. I'm sure Miami fans are sick of seeing and hearing about that game, but that's one that's going to stick around for quite some time, and feel like we just simply have to mention it. Then second week in a row, the loss to North Carolina ended up being a double-digit loss, but Miami had over a 50%, so would have expected based on the box score, Miami to have won that game more than half the time. Miami does get a couple of overtime wins, including against Virginia, where perhaps they were a little fortunate to win that game based on the post-game numbers, and 3 straight losses. So a real struggle there at the end of October into the month of November, I should say, with a tough stretch, NC State, and then the ACC title contender, title game participants, Florida State and Louisville. Get back on the right side of things with a big win over Boston College to earn that bowl bid, but could not turn that into a strong finish. Losing to Rutgers, former Big East rival, former just real punching bag, quite honestly, for this Miami program. So perhaps that one probably hurt. Ended up being just a one-score game, but Miami with just a 21% post-game win expectancy number, according to collegefootballdata.com. Taking a look at the numbers, how did this team stack up statistically? Last season, Miami played like a top 20 team. You would not expect, it's somewhat rare for a team that finishes its regular season 6-6 with a losing record in ACC conference play to play like a top 20 team. But that, at least according to the way that we calculate it, was the case last season. So when we look at a lot of the stats, whether they're on net margin, stats like scoring margin, where Miami was 33rd last season against FBS opponents only in the regular season only, 40th in scoring offense, 43rd in scoring defense. Look at net yards per play. Miami was basically a top 25 team, 26th on net. Again, FBS opponents only, regular season only. Points per drive took a little bit of a step back. That takes into account garbage time. Brian Fremeau, his points per drive numbers there. Yards per pass attempt, 44th on net for Miami. Success rate, a little closer to a top 25 team, 31st in net success rate, 54th offensively, 29th in success rate against. And then collegefootballdata.com, their EPA equivalent, PPA, predicted points added per play. Miami was 27th on margin, 35th offensively, 34th defensively, but graded out decently well as an offensive line. That had forever been, or seemingly, the basically the entirety of this decade, Miami had questions on the offensive line. That was pointed to as one of the major concerns. Why couldn't this team, play up to its potential? But Miami was a top 10 O-line unit in our performance ratings last season, and the defensive line top 10 as well. So Mario Cristobal, his background as an offensive line coach, also has had some strong defenses as well, really building this Miami program from the trenches on both sides of the line of scrimmage. That paid off, and now the skill position team and talent seems to be rounding out what should continue to be pretty good offensive and defensive lines. But who's coming back, who's not, based on our returning production database. Miami ranks 54th nationally in overall returning production, our adjusted overall returning production, which includes incoming transfers across the country. If we were just looking at raw numbers, who left based on the end of last season, Miami ranked 97th in returning production overall, 60th on the offensive side of the ball, 118th defensively. But what Cristobal and his staff have done, rebuilding this Miami roster through the transfer portal, they were able to make significant progress there. And 54th, a little bit better than FBS average. Not necessarily what you would expect. Bill Connolly has done some great research on, what returning production sort of benchmarks do you want to hit to not guarantee, but give you a significant chance of improving your one-loss record. It's basically, top 10. If you're in the top 10 nationally, chances are you're going to be in position to put up a few more wins than you had last year. Same thing on the bottom end. Your chance of your win-loss record going down is much more significant. If you're in this sort of big middle where Miami finds itself, there's no real indication, but certainly you'd rather be on the higher side than the lower side. 54th for a top 25 caliber team. It's not a major red flag. It's not something that this Miami team can't overcome. Of course, the Hurricanes went heavy at the quarterback position in the transfer portal. First going after Reed Poffenbarger, who put up 3,500 yards, 35 touchdowns at UAlbany at the FCS level, began his career at Old Dominion. Kind of a little bit of a surprise, especially after adding Cam Ward was it January, maybe February? Kind of a surprised I was that Poffenbarger decided that he was going to stay. Thought that he might enter the portal again, look more for an opportunity to start in 2024. Instead, looks like Miami has maybe one, a quarterback with first round potential as its entrenched starter in Ward, but also clearly, quarterback of the future, 2025 starter in Poffenbarger, who's gotten some great experience as well, a nice backup option should something happen to Ward. Those players, of course, replace Tyler Van Dyke, who a couple of years ago we were talking, maybe first round NFL potential for Van Dyke. This time last year, there were discussions about how Alabama pursued Tyler Van Dyke. Instead, he returns to Miami, underwhelms, and is headed to Wisconsin. So what's going to be different this year? Why is Cam Ward that much of an improvement over Tyler Van Dyke? All I can say is the reports coming out of spring practice were unlike any that I remember. I know there have been plenty of positive reports about players like Van Dyke, about Miami as a whole, but we talked about it a lot on the early episodes of Good Morning College Football, sort of as we were getting into and of course, as spring practice was wrapping up with spring games, the real positive buzz around Ward, not only the plays he was making and sort of how he was conducting himself on the practice field, but the leadership and all that. And does that all really matter? Maybe not. We'll see once this season kicks off. But I don't know. There was a lot of buzz, a lot of positivity, more than I expected, more than I was used to, and really more than we saw from most places. And perhaps that's overinflating expectations for Cam Ward. We shall see. But it was consistent, and it was pretty much across the board high praise. The running back situation we talked a lot about this spring as well. And with Henry Parrish leaving, transferring out, ending up back at Ole Miss after being the leading rusher last season, 625 yards and 6 touchdowns. Sort of the injury situation around Mark Fletcher Jr., who had a great true freshman season, but was limited. There seems to be some questions as to whether or not he'll be 100% come fall camp. Ajay Allen has some injury history as well. Of course, Javonte Citizen, somebody that a lot of folks were really, really high on as a recruit coming out of high school, just hasn't been able to get healthy. He ends up transferring out as well. Donald Chaney transferring to Louisville. So there was plenty of question. All right, who is going to emerge at the running back position? True freshman tight end Elijah Arroyo, or excuse me, not Arroyo. I was confusing him with who's the true freshman? Elijah Lofton was getting reps with the starters or projected starters at running back this fall. So no surprise that once Damian Martinez was officially available, transferring out of Oregon State, where he's had an excellent first 2 seasons for the Beavs in his career, 1,185 yards last season, 9 touchdowns. Once he became available, Miami was rumored immediately as being very interested. Were able to get the deal done to bring Martinez to Coral Gables. What looked like a major question mark is now potentially an area of strength, where you've got an all-conference caliber running back who's coming off of nearly 1,200 yards last season, should really be somebody that Miami can lean on as they work into developing the passing game, which, again, according to most reports coming out of spring, Ward was already had a great rapport, especially with Xavier Restrepo, who had a huge season last year, targeted nearly 120 times, 85 catches, over 1,000 yards receiving and 6 touchdowns. Jacoby George, very solid as well. 57 catches, 864 yards, and a team-leading 8 scores. Miami added Samuel Brown to the mix, another guy who was targeted 90 times at Houston, 61 receptions, 815 yards, and 3 scores. That offsets a bit the loss of Colby Young, who, of course, transferred out to Georgia. Brashard Smith transferring to SMU, where he's listed as a running back. Bringing in Brown and sort of, like I said, to help offset that loss. But Restrepo, I think, can certainly be an all-ACC wide receiver, the potential perhaps to be an All-American if all goes well. But there are a couple of true freshmen who could be in line for immediate playing time. Josiah Trader, JoJo Trader, and Nye Carr were both grabbing headlines, making news this spring as well. So how will they factor in to that wide receiver core, which looks very, very strong at the top, but also the tight end position? I mentioned Arroyo was limited to just one game last year, had just one catch, but somebody who has a very high ceiling at the tight end position. Getting Cam McCormick back for, I believe, his 9th year of eligibility adds depth to what should be a strong tight end group. Excited to see what Lofton can do, what sort of role he will carve out as a true freshman, whether it's some tight end, getting a few carries, maybe an H-back, what have you. That I think is going to be really, really interesting to keep an eye on moving forward. And as we said before, the offensive line should be a real strength. Do lose Matt Lee and Javion Cohen, 2 full-time starters, but bring back all-conference performer Jalen Rivers among the 3 full-time starters. Also add Zach Carpenter to the mix. It seems unclear whether or not we'll actually see Zion Nelson back in 2024. Didn't sound like he was participating much, if at all, this spring, if memory serves. But if they're able to get him back, that would certainly be a bonus. 33 starts in his career at one time, was considered a potential first-round draft pick. At this point, again, probably just a bonus if they get him back. But nevertheless, this unit, I think there's enough coming back that there's a lot to like for Miami up front in 2024. And then on the defensive side of the ball, as we said, in terms of raw returning production, this Miami defense would have been in fairly rough shape. Do get leading tackler Francisco Mayoga back, but lost James Williams, Cameron Kitchen early to the NFL. Also lost Corey Flagg Jr. transferring out. Did lose a few others as well. There was a little bit of a period where we weren't 100% sure if CJ Cloyd was going to be back or not, but at last check, he was not listed on the 2024 roster. So Jaden Davis, Corey Couch, out of eligibility, moving on, graduated, what have you. But losing some early NFL draft picks, losing a couple of transfers here and there, left a lot of opportunities for others to step in. And this coaching staff went heavy in the transfer portal. As you can see here, Deani Hill, who was a transfer, former starter at Marshall, Elijah Alston coming in as well, Michelle Powell, Simeon Barrow, we'll get to him. There was a little murkiness about his situation, perhaps, but the addition of Tyler Barron, who's a highly rated pass rusher, spent his spring at Louisville. Prior to that was at Tennessee. Marley Cook, CJ Clark, a lot of incoming experience and potential, certainly, on the defensive line and the defense as a whole for Miami. So what does it look like as far as our 2024 projections, our projected depth chart? Of course, Cam Ward at quarterback. It seems fair to assume Damian Martinez will quickly emerge as the top running back. Xavier Restrepo, who had a huge year last season, 11 production points. I'm a big fan of his personally. Jacoby George, I think, certainly complements him well. Sam Brown rounds out what should be a pretty strong wide receiver core especially to start for Miami. Experience at tight end and on the offensive line, and certainly not a perfect unit by any stretch, but should be, if not a major strength, at least not a major weak point. If Miami is able to get some players back and fully healthy, able to capitalize on what was a really solid recruiting class. I didn't even mention Jordan Lyle. He wasn't in for the spring, but there's been a lot of positive buzz about him as well. Potentially, especially, we have him listed here at 6 feet 180. Sounds like perhaps he might be a little closer to 200 pounds right now. That would be huge. He's somebody I've been drafting a lot in college fantasy football supplemental drafts. Hope, fingers crossed, everything will work out well for him. Seems like once Martinez moves, maybe he'll have an opportunity to compete for number one carries alongside Fletcher, assuming he gets back and fully healthy. But anyway, that's perhaps getting a little too far ahead of ourselves. Defensively, there are a few potential question marks, right? There was a couple of reports, some rumors that Simeon Barrow, the transfer coming in from Michigan State, might be considering leaving Miami. I believe that was in late May, early June, perhaps. Nothing that I was able to find has come of that necessarily. There was a tweet in early June that Barrow sort of reaffirmed his commitment to Miami. I do still have him highlighted in purple here, which is our color for status unknown, but did not remove him from the projected starting lineup. Perhaps I should, but we'll keep an eye on that. Certainly have Barrow and CJ Clark incoming transfer as projected starters in the interior defensive line. But we could mix and match, a Marley Cook, maybe even true freshman Justin Scott, assuming he gets up to speed very quickly this fall. Certainly looks like an impact true freshman as well. But another question, how healthy is Akeem Mesidor? The transfer last season played less than 6% of snaps for Miami, 22 and a half snaps per game when he was on the field. But if he's able to be back and fully healthy, certainly has a history as a productive pass rusher. If Barrow is back and, fully available this fall for Miami, he was considered one of the top 2 or 3 interior defensive linemen in the portal when he committed to Miami. So there certainly are some questions up front, but a lot of depth added with Elijah Alston, with Tyler Barron, with Cook, as we said. So that defensive line on paper looks like it could be potentially one of the best in the country. Both starting linebackers are back, Magoa and Wesley Besanth. My apologies to anyone if I mispronounce the name, purely unintentional. But in the secondary, get only one full-time starter, Gerald Porter Jr. back, but Powell, who coming in from the Washington Huskies, played for the national championship last season. We have him penciled in as a starter. But that secondary, defensively speaking, is the biggest question mark on the roster this spring. All the positive reports about Cam Ward, all the positive reports are, certainly key to confidence in this offense, confidence in Ward, but also, it's a zero-sum game. As good as Ward and Restrepo looked, they were torching corners for large portions of practice this spring. So will that secondary step up? Will they be able to rebuild, replace a lot of the players who moved on? There were some injuries, players unavailable this spring as well. So that is certainly, I think, the key question for this Miami defense. And Miami did address some of its roster holes, tried to replace those players moving on with transfers like Powell, with De'Ani Hill, with Isaiah Taylor. But that question remains unanswered, I think, until we see how it all looks against another opponent this fall. So looking at the schedule, we're high on Miami. Our numbers have the Hurricanes favored in 11 of 12 regular season games. The one in which we don't is that matchup against Louisville, middle of the season, on the road, and we have Miami as just a half point, little less than a half point underdog. So if things, if this team plays up to its ability, this Miami team could put up double-digit wins in 2024. The win total posted by DraftKings, regular season win total is 9. So certainly the potential is there to go over if Miami just takes care of business when it's, the most talented team, win those games you're supposed to win. I think they absolutely could get there. But there certainly are losable games. There are games, as you can see, are point spread projections here and the point spread winning percentages that those two are attempted to line up, and so we can add up these pieces of wins. 59% that week 1 trip to the Swamp to face Florida. We have Miami favored by only 4 points. So 59% preseason win expectancy. We convert that to 0.59 wins. Next week against Florida A&M, 0.97 wins. Ball State, 0.99 wins. Add them all up, we get to 8.82. So some of those coin flip games, Louisville, Florida State, where we have Miami favored by about 1.5. Single digit favorites against Virginia Tech, on the road against Cal, Georgia Tech, revenge game certainly, but that Georgia Tech team is perhaps better than the one that beat Miami last year. Syracuse at the end of the season. If you listen to the CFP Winning Edge ACC Part 1 preview, you'll know that our numbers really seem to like Syracuse. Think they're going to be quite competitive in year 1 under Fran Brown. So this schedule is manageable for the Hurricanes. I think a trip to the ACC championship game is definitely possible, but this is a team that has underachieved expectations, not just before, but fairly consistently in the recent past. So we're going to have to see some growth on that end. Hopefully, Cam Ward, the transfer additions in the secondary. Hopefully, everything works out on the defensive line. That unit can continue to play at a high level as it did last season. The offensive line in a similar mode. The potential is there for this Miami team to be a championship contender, ACC championship contender, a playoff contender. Bruce Feldman has this Miami team making that initial 12-team playoff. The odds at DraftKings are a little, I think it's a little less likely. I think they're at 2-1 or so to make the playoff this year. But the potential is absolutely there if this team plays up to the level of its talent. And you can see, how our numbers shake out here position by position. If you just look at those raw recruiting numbers, whether it's 247 Sports, Rivals, or On3, looks like this Miami team has top 15 talent on offense. And that's with, a quarterback who was a former unrated player in Cam Ward, somebody who came in, rated similarly to walk-ons at the FBS level. And then another Reef Oppenbarger, who was an FCS All-American, but not a highly rated recruit coming out of high school as well. That quarterback room should be a real strength for Miami this season. But it kind of drags down the rest of this roster, which ranks 15th, or in the top 15, 13th, I should say, in average 247 composite rating at the running back position. Number 6 wide receivers, number 3 at tight end, number 13 on the offensive line. The defense is solid across the board. 15th, defensive line and raw talent. Number 9 at the linebacker duo, top 25 in defensive backs, reaching into the top 15 if you look at those Rivals ratings. So there's a lot of talent on hand, at least according to the good folks who usually do a great job, at places like 247 and Rivals and On3. But those are the same sites that have consistently, these Miami recruiting classes often rank, top 20, top 15, even maybe even a little higher some years, yet the program and the team, the wins and losses haven't quite been up to that level. Is this the year Mario Cristobal turns it around? He's had a lot of recruiting success. There's some true freshmen expected to make key impacts this season, and will the transfers, those high-profile transfers, Cam Ward chief among them, are they going to be, able to take this Miami program to the next level? That is the big question. The potential is there. We just have to see it follow through. So that is going to do it for us today. We were originally planning on having 3 shows this week and just kind of moving our normal Wednesday show because we've got a conflict to Tuesday. But instead, we're just going to take our normal midweek show off. So we're just going to push that off. We're going to be back on Friday for our team that ranks 14th in our preseason rankings. That is, and a little bit of a surprise, and for a while there in the summer, actually our highest rated ACC team, until I did make something I don't like to do and adjusted the rating manually a little bit. We're going to talk about that new ACC team, the SMU Mustangs, ranked very highly in our numbers. I'm pretty sure we are not just higher on SMU than everybody, but probably much higher. So that what are others saying part of the program will be pretty interesting, I think, where they're going to be unranked or maybe in the late 20s in most, but a top 15 team in our projection. So we'll get into why that is, and maybe there are some areas where we've unearthed a little more value in SMU than others, but also we'll talk about how and why, or if I should say, we are overrating SMU. So be back with us on Friday for that. Until then, please do subscribe to the Campus to Canton YouTube channel. Please do like this video. It really does help us to grow. Check out all the other great content on that Campus to Canton YouTube channel, the Campus to Canton podcast feed as well. There's new stuff popping up just about every day on both of those, but also campus2canton.com. If you would join for as little as $2.99 per month there, get access to a ton of content. One of, if not, we think the best value in college fantasy content at that $2.99 level, or go all the way up to the All-22 and C2C Winning Edge tier packages. Get access to our team profiles, returning production database, our stat projections coming soon. We hopefully get you covered from every angle: college fantasy football, Devy, C2C, college football as a whole. Reach out anytime if you've got questions. And until Friday, hope you have a great holiday week, and take care.